Hi, welcome to our first day going over some of our the affair care, more intimately. We're going to go over the love kindlers, then the love extinguishers, and then the 7 steps to save your marriage, and then the 7 steps to reconcile your after an affair. So today and this week, we're going to be going over the love kindlers in order. So, and just so you know, there's no particular order. We just happen to sort of pick one. Um, and to recap quickly, we some of our basic concepts. First, we do feel that love is a decision, and it's not a feeling. All too often in the society today, people think that love is, oh, I've never felt like this for someone before. Or they'll think, oh, I have that fluttery feeling, and that must be love. And in real life, what love is a choice to treat another person in a loving way in a consistent manner, that is to say, day after day after day, sometimes in spite of themselves. That is to say, taking the time to listen to them, taking the time to learn what means I love you to them, and then acting in a way that means I love you to them. So that's love. And so it's a conscious choice to act in a loving way towards another person. It's an initiated action. So you may sit and think lovely thoughts about your spouse, but unless you get up and act on it, then you're not being loving. So that just so we kind of understand. And then to understand what a love kindler is, remember our basic concept that thinking of love like as a campfire. And around the fire is the protective rocks, right? The little circle. That's the vows that kind of protects your fire. There are actions that a person can do that will put out the fire. This is like a little cup of water all the way up to a big old pail full dumping of water. And that would be a love extinguisher. And we'll be going over those next week. But this week, we're going over love kindlers. These are actions and things that a person can do to build the fire, to make it warmer, to make it brighter, hotter, and to make it grow. When the fire is growing, this is you will feel loving feelings towards your spouse. And what people often will say, I don't know if I can get that feeling back. Well, there's 2 parts to that. You end the extinguishers and you start the kindlers, and by doing those 2 actions, the love does come back. So when we first meet a person, it's natural to there's very few extinguishers going on because you're looking good and you're doing fun things and things. So it's natural that you invest a lot of kindlers and you have very few extinguishers. And this is how, in the beginning, when you first meet each other, it seems so natural. There's nothing yet that's kind of putting a damper on the fire, and it seems like it grows so easily. And that's why. It's because you're investing so many kindlers. And what typically happens with people is after the wedding bells, there are a few, extinguishers that are added. Maybe easy things like, hanging the toilet paper the wrong way, leaving the toilet seat up, silly things that kind of put the damper on. Pretty soon, their kids come, bills are getting larger, pressures of life add, and this is where we kind of left off yesterday, that, at the best case scenario, it's kind of even. You build some, but then you put some out, and it's not growing. So what we want to do today is to go over the kindlers. When you choose to stop acting in a way that is loving and you're extinguishing the fire, that is neglecting your fire. So thus we use that term neglect when describing an extinguisher. But when you choose to act in love and to rekindle your fire, you're honoring the commitment you've made and thus our Kindlers are have that term commitment in there. So the first Kindler, number one, is emotional commitment. And this is meeting your spouse's need to be emotionally, to be loved, valued, admired, appreciated, respected. Now, I think it's reasonable to say that every human being wants to be loved. Everyone would like to think that someone sees the real them, warts and all, and still loves them for that. Yes, we are all imperfect. Yes, we all have flaws, both personality, character, physically. But when that emotional commitment is met, when you look at your spouse and you've come to know them, that biblical know. I know Adam knew Eve. Know your spouse. Know what their love language is. Know their personality. Know how they handle things. And you still love them and commit to loving them because they are who they are. To feel valued would be when you look at your spouse and you realize she's such a wonderful, precious treasure that it's worth putting my time and effort into her. Or you're looking at your husband and you go, this is a man of value. He has character and it's worth putting my time into him. To be respected. Now, this one's a toughie a little bit because what happens is people, they have this image in their head of what they want their spouse to be or think their spouse is like. And then when they don't give their spouse the opportunity to even do or express something different. I kind of have this little image that I call, it's like the spouse is a teddy bear. And when they're not around, I'm going to put the teddy bear down, but the teddy bear can't do anything without me. And when I come back, the teddy bear is animated again. If this is how you view your spouse, like they're not equal to you, like the way they load the dishwasher is completely just as good as the way you load the dishwasher. In the end, the dishes get clean. It doesn't have to be, then you're not respecting them. So that's a tough one to recognize, but then also to change. To trust your spouse. Again, this is a little bit tough because, especially in the area of infidelity, a lot of times the disloyal spouse has proven by their actions that they are not trustworthy. And that's where the trust has been broken. But in a marriage that is growing, where the fire is growing, what happens is, let's say even in the situation after an affair, you trust them to the degree that they have demonstrated actions that show they're trustworthy. Now, this confuses people sometimes, so what I do, personally, I will do their words and their actions match. So, for example, if they say they're going to the store, and later on you go to the store, and the clerk says, oh yeah, I saw your husband or your wife at 3 o'clock, they were where they said they were going to be. Okay? If they say they're going to come home at 7, and they come home at 7, they've demonstrated with their actions that their words and their actions match each other. So then that possibly they may be trustworthy when they say, I'll be home at 7. I might be able to trust that. And you put some trust into it, right? Then they do that consistently for a week or a month. Put a little more trust into it because they have demonstrated. And then gradually you can rebuild your trust that way, even when it's been utterly destroyed. But what happens is the disloyal, you can't be trusted if you're acting in a way that's not trustworthy. If you're lying, you're not going to be trusted. So don't expect them, just trust me, I'm a trustworthy person. No, you've shown by your behavior that you cannot be trusted. You told me I was crazy when you were cheating. So No, don't expect to be trusted. Expect to have to rebuild that and take the time to rebuild that. So, but in a marriage that is growing, the trust is also growing. The emotional commitment is accepting your spouse. Now, I'll give you a really great example of that in my own marriage with the dear hubby. He is a guy who is a thinker. I am a lady who's a feeler. When something happens, he will get quiet, and he will process it and think about it. Once he has reached a conclusion, then he kind of comes out of his little shell. Oh my goodness, excuse me. And he will be able to discuss it then. And I don't mean he's got to think through the entire thing, but a lot of times the way that he just will process something is inside of himself. Me, being a feeler, I'm a little more external in the way that I deal with things. If something happens, first thing I do is I have an emotional, like a little wave. So and my brain kind of turns off. So I know that this is the way I am. And so I have made this little rule for myself. Don't make any decisions during the emotional part. Wait for the emotions to subside some. It's like a little wave. Once they subside, then I try to process things, and I usually do it externally by trying to talk to someone. Now, if I tried to turn my husband into somebody who talks externally, I wouldn't be accepting him for who he is. He's not that way. And he could try. Sometimes he does try to speak aloud to reassure me a little, but to make him not be who he is, I would not be accepting him. So you have to accept your spouse for who they are. When we say people are going to change and grow, usually what it is here's your basic core personality. That's going to stay the same, but you may improve as a person. There are personality traits and qualities that you could add that are good ones. That's what we mean when we say change and grow. So, okay, appreciation. And I'm going to put them together. Appreciation and admiration are emotional commitments that a lot of people need, especially, like I love you, but especially fellas, just numerically tend to need to be acknowledged. And I have to be honest with you, I happen to be that way too. I want somebody to, like, it's strange. I don't want somebody that's going to, hey, thank you for loading the dishwasher. But on the occasion, if I do your chore, I do not like it if you say, wow, I noticed you did my chore. Thank you. This is appreciation. This is expressing some gratitude and letting your spouse know that you admire the kind of person they are. Now, if what's coming out of your mouth is the opposite, you're going to be, extinguishing the fire. So sometimes you have to learn. I know sometimes you think, I don't know what I like about them anymore, or what. So you have to learn. You have to look for it. If that's where you're at, just take some time and find one thing today that they did that you appreciated, or one thing about them that you admire, and just speak it out loud. That's all. And get started. This is part of changing your mind. So, and then the last thing that is emotional commitment that I'd like to discuss today is being understood. A lot of times people will have they'll have a disagreement with their spouse. And what happens is, I'm going to tell you my point, and here's my reason, and state whatever I'm going to state. And rather than listening, the other spouse will be thinking of how they're going to come back. And then both of them are going back and forth, like they're shooting little arrows at each other, and neither one of them ever stops to listen to the other person, repeat back what they've heard, kind of rephrase it in their own terms, like, okay, here's what I heard you say. I'm going to paraphrase it here in my own terms to make sure I'm understanding it. Is that what you meant? And then make sure that they are understanding what their spouse said. Now, it doesn't always have to be a disagreement. Sometimes it could be something where you say, oh, you need to grow your faith. And what you're thinking is, I would be interested in reading the Bible more. And what your spouse hears is, you don't have any faith. So here, the understood part would be if the spouse that heard that, you don't have any faith, says, wow, I just heard you say I don't have any faith. Is that what you meant? Then they would be able to understand each other. See what I mean? So it's not always a disagreement. Sometimes it's just being misunderstood. And people long to be understood. People long to be, like, I want someone to know me and know my mind and find me interesting and fun and appreciate me and love me and value me and respect me. Everyone, I think, has this core longing. And in a marriage, one of the things we've committed to is meeting that need.